Hello and welcome back to our series on the First World War. We've journeyed through the muddy trenches, witnessed the clash of empires, and heard the stories of soldiers. But the end of the fighting in 1918 wasn't the end of the story. In many ways, it was just the beginning. Today, we're exploring the profound legacy of the Great War and how it truly changed everything. Before 1914, the world map looked very different. But after 4 years of brutal conflict, entire empires that had stood for centuries, the Austro-Hungarian, the Ottoman, the Russian, and the German, crumbled into dust. In their place, a patchwork of new nations emerged, and new governments struggled to find their footing. This political earthquake created instability that would define the decades to come. The world was redrawn, but the lines were messy, and the foundations were shaky. Economically, the war was a catastrophe. Nations were buried under mountains of debt. Farmlands and industrial centers across Europe lay in ruins. For the people, the cost was immeasurable. A whole generation of young men was lost, leaving behind a lost generation of survivors grappling with physical and psychological scars. The collective trauma was immense, and the economic hardship fueled social unrest and political extremism. The Roaring Twenties might have brought a brief, frantic burst of energy, but the underlying economic fragility would soon lead to the Great Depression. But change wasn't only about loss and destruction. The war also acted as a powerful catalyst for social transformation. With millions of men at the front, women stepped into roles they had previously been denied. They worked in munitions factories, on farms, and as nurses, proving their capabilities and their indispensability. This monumental contribution to the war effort became a powerful argument for their rights. In many countries, the years following the war saw women finally win the right to vote, a massive step forward in the fight for equality. Society had been irrevocably altered. The war was also a crucible of innovation. The sheer scale of the conflict accelerated technological and medical development at an unprecedented rate. Aviation, which was in its infancy in 1914, became a critical part of warfare, paving the way for the age of air travel. The development of tanks changed land combat forever. In medicine, doctors made incredible advances in surgery, blood transfusions, and the treatment of trauma, learning harsh lessons that would save countless lives in the future. Even things we take for granted today, like plastic surgery and shell shock being recognized as a real condition, what we now call PTSD, have their roots in the Great War. However, the war's most dangerous legacy was the peace that followed. The Treaty of Versailles, intended to prevent future conflicts, ended up planting the seeds for another one. The harsh terms imposed on Germany, the war guilt clause, crippling reparations, and territorial losses, fostered deep-seated resentment and a desire for revenge. This bitterness created fertile ground for extremist ideologies to take root. The hope that this had been the war to end all wars, the war that would make the world safe for democracy, quickly faded. The League of Nations, an ambitious project to ensure global peace, was ultimately powerless to stop the rising tide of aggression. So the story of World War I doesn't end in a trench or on a battlefield. Its echoes reverberate through the 20th century and into our present day. It's a story of fallen empires and the birth of new nations, of economic ruin and social progress, of technological leaps and the psychological wounds that never quite healed. It's the story of how a single catastrophic conflict reshaped our world in ways we are still trying to understand. The Great War is not just a chapter in a history book. It's a fundamental part of the DNA of our modern world. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. If you found this video insightful, please give it a like and consider subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into history. We'll see you in the next one.